in the frozen heart of the Viking North, where the Thornwood hides secrets older than the gods themselves. A young warrior named Eirik stumbles upon a runestone, pulsing with ancient power. Its cryptic words beneath the thorns. The gods sleep. Their secrets burn. Pull him into a forbidden forest, where wolves with red eyes stalk. A shadowy watcher wields a blade of divine fire, and his lost mother's fate hangs in the balance. Will Eirik unlock the god's secrets to save his village? Or will the Thornwood's curse burn everything he loves to ash? Dive into a saga of blood, betrayal, and forbidden power that will grip your heart and not let go. Chapter number 1. Whispers of the Thornwood wind howled through the fjord, sharp as a wolf's teeth, carrying the scent of pine and salt. Eirik stood on the cliff's edge, his boots sinking into the frost-crusted earth. Below, the village of Skjoldvik nestled between jagged rocks and the dark, churning sea. Smoke curled from the longhouses, their thatched roofs heavy with snow. The air bit at Eirik's face, turning his cheeks red beneath his scruffy beard. At 16 winters, he was no boy, but not yet a man in the eyes of the clan. His father, Bjorn Ironspear, said he lacked the fire of a true Viking. Eirik clenched his fists, the leather of his gloves creaking. He'd prove them wrong. Tonight, the village buzzed with talk of the Thornwood. It was a forbidden place, a forest so old. The Skalds claimed it grew from the blood of gods. No one went there. Not hunters, not warriors, not even the young. The elders whispered of curses, of shadows that moved without light, of secrets buried beneath roots older than the mountains. Eirik's ears burned with their stories, told over crackling fires in the mead hall. The Thornwood called to him, not in words, but in a pull deep in his chest, like a hook tugging his heart. He adjusted the axe at his belt, its iron head cold against his hip. The weapon was small, forged for chopping wood, not war, but it was his. His mother Astrid had given it to him before she vanished 3 winters ago. She'd been a wanderer, always chasing tales of lost gods and hidden places. Some said she'd gone to the Thornwood and never returned. Eirik didn't believe them. She was out there, somewhere, and he'd find her. Maybe the forest held answers. Eirik, a voice barked, sharp as a cracking branch. He turned to see his older brother, Thorvald, stomping up the path. Thorvald was broad as an ox, his blond beard braided with iron rings. His mail shirt clinked with each step, and his war axe hung heavy at his side. "What are you doing out here? Staring at the sea won't make you a warrior." Eirik scowled. "I'm thinking. Thorvald laughed, a rough sound like stones grinding. "You think too much. Father says you're soft, like a pup hiding behind its mother's tail." Eirik's jaw tightened. "I'm not soft. I'll prove it." Thorvald's eyes narrowed, glinting like the steel of his blade. "Prove it, then. Join the hunt tomorrow. Kill a boar, bring its tusks to the hall. Show the clan you're not just a dreamer." Eirik nodded, though his stomach twisted. He'd never killed anything bigger than a hare, but a hunt was a start. A chance to show he wasn't the weakling they thought. "I'll do it," he said, voice steady. Thorvald grunted, clapping a heavy hand on Eirik's shoulder. "Good, don't shame us." He turned and trudged back toward the village, his shadow long and dark against the snow. Eirik lingered, his gaze drifting north, where the Thornwood loomed. Its trees were black slashes against the gray sky, their branches twisted like gnarled fingers. The elders' warnings echoed in his mind. The gods are dead, but their anger lives in the Thornwood. Trespass, and you'll wake their wrath. He shook his head. Stories, nothing more. But his mother's voice, soft and fierce, whispered in his memory, "The truth lies where others fear to tread." The next morning, Eirik joined the hunt. The air was crisp, the ground hard with frost. 6 men gathered at the village edge, their breaths puffing white in the dawn light. Thorvald led them, his axe gleaming. The others were seasoned warriors. Gunnar, with scars like rivers across his face. Leif, whose laugh boomed louder than thunder. And 3 others, Eirik barely knew. They carried spears and bows, their furs heavy with the stink of sweat and blood. "Stay close, boy," Gunnar muttered, eyeing Eirik's small axe. "Boars don't fall to kindling tools." Eirik ignored him, gripping his axe tighter. The group trudged into the forest, not the Thornwood, but a safer stretch of pines and birches. The trees stood tall, their needles whispering in the wind. Eirik's boots crunched through snow, his heart pounding. He scanned the ground for tracks, hoping to spot the telltale hoofprints of a boar. Hours passed. The men spread out, silent now, their eyes sharp. Eirik stayed near Thorvald, watching his brother's every move. Thorvald was a hunter, born for this. Eirik wanted to be like him, but the weight of his axe felt wrong, too light for the task. Doubt gnawed at him. What if he failed? What if he froze when the boar charged? A twig snapped. Eirik froze, his breath catching. Ahead, a shadow moved. Between the trees. Not a boar, a man. Hooded, cloaked in dark furs. He stood still as stone, watching them. Eirik's skin prickled. No one lived this deep in the forest. The figure turned and slipped away, vanishing into the trees. Eirik whispered, pointing. "Did you see that?" Thorvald frowned, squinting into the shadows. "Nothing's there, boy. Keep your eyes on the hunt." But Eirik wasn't sure. The figure had been real, hadn't it? He shook it off, focusing on the ground. That's when he saw it, a single hoofprint, deep and fresh, leading north. Toward the Thornwood. "Thorvald, look," Eirik called, pointing at the track. Thorvald knelt, touching the print. His face darkened. "Boar, a big one. But it's heading to the forbidden place." The other men gathered, muttering. Leif spat into the snow. "No beast is worth that cursed wood." "We turn back," Gunnar said, his voice low. "The Thornwood's no place for men." Thorvald stood, his jaw tight. "We follow it. A boar like that could feed the village for weeks." "You want to face the Jarl empty-handed?" The men grumbled but nodded. Eirik's heart raced. The Thornwood, he'd wanted to see it, but not like this, not with the weight of the hunt on him. Still, he followed, as Thorvald led the way, the trees growing denser, their branches closing overhead like a cage. The forest changed as they crossed an unseen line. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth, and something sharp, like iron. The pines gave way to gnarled oaks, their roots twisting like serpents. The Thornwood, Eirik's pulse quickened. Every step felt wrong, like the ground itself watched them. "Stay sharp," Thorvald hissed, his axe raised. The men moved silently now, their weapons ready. The hoofprints led deeper, winding through. Thornset snagged at Eirik's cloak. He glanced back, but the path behind them seemed to shift, the trees closing in. His mother's words echoed. The truth lies where others fear to tread. A low grunt broke the silence. The boar. It stood in a clearing, massive, its tusks gleaming like knives. Its eyes glowed red in the dim light. Unnatural. Wrong. Eirik's breath caught. This was no ordinary beast. "Ready your spears," Thorvald shouted. The men fanned out, circling the boar. Eirik gripped his axe, his hands slick with sweat. The boar snorted, pawing the ground, then charged. Chaos erupted. Gunnar thrust his spear, missing as the boar swerved. Leif loosed an arrow, but it glanced off the beast's hide. Thorvald roared, swinging his axe, but the boar was too fast, slamming into him. Thorvald hit the ground hard, his axe skittering away. Eirik acted without thinking. He ran forward, raising his small axe, and swung at the boar's flank. The blade bit into flesh, but the beast barely flinched. It turned, its tusks slashing at Eirik. He dove aside, rolling into the snow. The boar charged again, but Gunnar's spear caught its shoulder, slowing it. Together, Thorvald yelled, back on his feet. The men attacked as one, spears and axes raining down. The boar bellowed, blood streaming from its wounds, and finally collapsed, its eyes dimming. Eirik panted, his heart hammering. The men cheered, slapping each other's backs. Thorvald grinned, clapping Eirik's shoulder. "Not bad, little brother. Maybe you're not so soft." Eirik forced a smile, but his eyes drifted to the clearing. Something wasn't right. The air felt heavier, the shadows darker. Then he saw it, a stone, half buried in the earth, carved with runes, not like any he'd seen before. These were sharp, jagged, glowing faintly blue. "Thorvald," Eirik said, pointing. "Look at that." The men fell silent, staring at the stone. Gunnar's face paled. "God's work," he whispered. "We shouldn't be here." Thorvald stepped closer, squinting at the runes. "It's old. Older than the clan." "Eirik, you read runes. What does it say?" Eirik knelt, his fingers brushing the stone. The runes were strange, their shapes twisting in his mind. He sounded them out, his voice low. "Beneath the thorns, the gods sleep. Their secrets burn. Seek them, and pay the price." The men backed away, muttering prayers to Odin. Thorvald's face hardened. "We take the boar and leave. No one touches the stone." But Eirik couldn't look away. The runes seemed to pulse, calling to him. His mother's voice whispered again, "The truth lies where others fear to tread." He reached out, his fingers hovering over the stone. The air crackled, and a jolt shot through him, like lightning in his veins. Visions flashed in his mind guards, falling in battle, their blood soaking the earth, a power so vast it could shatter the world. "Eirik." Thorvald yanked him back, breaking the connection. "What are you doing, fool?" Eirik blinked, his head spinning. I saw something. The gods, they're here." Thorvald grabbed his arm, pulling him away. "Enough. We're leaving now." The men dragged the boar's carcass, its weight slowing them. Eirik followed, but his eyes kept darting to the stone. The thornwood seemed to watch them, its branches creaking like laughter. As they crossed back into the safer forest, Eirik glanced over his shoulder. The hooded figure stood there again, watching from the shadows. This time, Eirik was sure he wasn't imagining it. Back in Skjoldvik, the village celebrated. The boars. Meat filled the hall with the smell of roasting flesh, and mead flowed like a river. The skald, an old man named Hrothgar, sang of the hunt, praising Thorvald's strength and the men's courage. Eirik sat at the edge of the firelight, his mind elsewhere. The runes, the visions, the figure in the woods. They gnawed at him, refusing to let go. Hrothgar's song paused, and he leaned close, his eyes sharp, despite his age. "You saw something in the Thornwood, didn't you, lad?" Eirik hesitated, then nodded. "A stone. Runes. They spoke of gods and secrets." Hrothgar's face tightened. "Some truths are better left buried. The Thornwood keeps what the gods hid. Leave it be." But Eirik couldn't. That night, he lay on his furs, staring at the rafters. The runes burned in his mind, their words, a challenge. His mother had chased secrets like this. Maybe she'd found them. Maybe she was still out there, waiting for him to follow. He rose, pulling on his cloak. The village slept, the only sound the wind rattling the shutters. Eirik grabbed his axe and slipped out, his boots silent on the snow. The Thornwood waited, its shadows calling. He'd find the stone again. He'd learn its truth. As he crossed the village edge, a figure stepped from the darkness. Hrothgar, his face grim. "Going somewhere, lad?" Eirik froze, his hand on his axe. "I need to know." Hrothgar sighed, his breath a white cloud. "Then go. But mark my words, Eirik, the gods' secrets come with a price. And you may not like what you pay." Eirik nodded, his heart pounding. He turned north, toward the Thornwood, and stepped into the night. Chapter 2. The runestone's warning. The Thornwood swallowed Eirik like a beast, gulping down prey. Moonlight barely pierced the thick canopy, casting slivers of silver on the gnarled roots, twisting across his path. His boots sank into the damp earth, each step squelching as if the forest itself breathed. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of moss, and something sharper, like blood long spilled. Eirik's heart thumped loud in his ears, but he gripped his axe and pressed on. The runestone's words burned in his mind. Beneath the thorns, the gods sleep. Their secrets burn. Seek them and pay the price. He'd slipped away from Skjoldvik under cover of night, leaving the warmth of the longhouse and the drone of Hrothgar's warnings. The old skald's words clung to him like damp wool. The gods' secrets come with a price, but Eirik shoved them aside. His mother, Astrid, had never feared the unknown. She'd taught him to chase truth, no matter the cost. If the Thornwood held answers about her disappearance, he'd find them. The forest grew denser, the trees leaning closer, their branches like skeletal fingers brushing his cloak. Every rustle made him flinch. A snapping twig, a flutter of wings, the distant howl of a wolf. He tightened his grip on the axe, its wooden handle worn smooth by his mother's hands. It was no war weapon, but it was all he had. The weight of it steadied him, a piece of her strength in his palm. He wasn't sure how long he'd walk towers, maybe when he found the clearing again. The runestone stood at its center, half sunk in the earth, its jagged runes glowing faintly blue, like embers under ice. The air around it hummed, a low thrum that vibrated in his chest. Eirik's breath caught. The stone seemed alive, watching him. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on frost. The runes twisted in his vision, their shapes sharper now, as if carved yesterday. He knelt, tracing the lines with his fingers, careful not to touch. The words came back to him, pieced together from lessons with the village runemaster. Beneath the thorns, the gods sleep. Their secrets burn. Seek them, and pay the price. But there was more, fainter runes at the stone's base, hidden by moss. He brushed it away, his fingers trembling. He who wakes the gods' wrath shall bear their fire. Blood calls blood. Eirik's stomach twisted. Blood calls blood. What did it mean? A warning? A curse? He stood, his eyes darting around the clearing. The shadows seemed to shift, curling like smoke. He was alone, or was he? The memory of the hooded figure from the hunt prickled his skin. He'd seen it twice now, silent, watching. Was it here, hidden in the dark? A crack split the silence, loud as a breaking bone. Eirik spun, axe raised. Nothing. Just the wind, or so he told himself. But the air felt heavier, pressing against his chest. He backed toward the stone, his eyes scanning the trees. "Who's there?" he called, his voice thin in the vastness of the forest. No answer. Only the creak of branches and the distant hoot of an owl. He lowered his axe, feeling foolish. Maybe Thorvald was right. He was just a dreamer, jumping at shadows. But then he saw it. A flicker of movement, a dark shape slipping between the oaks. Not a wolf, not a deer, a man. Eirik's pulse raced. "Show yourself," he shouted, his voice steadier now. The shape paused, then stepped into the moonlight. A figure, cloaked in furs so black they drank the light, stood at the clearing's edge. Its hood hid its face, but Eirik felt eyes on him, sharp as a blade. "Who are you?" Eirik demanded, stepping forward. His axe felt heavy, useless against whatever this was. The figure didn't move. When it spoke, its voice was low, like gravel grinding underfoot. "You shouldn't be here, boy. The Thornwood keeps its own." Eirik's mouth went dry. "I'm not afraid. Tell me what you know about this place." The figure laughed, a sound, like dry leaves. "Brave or foolish? Hard to tell with you. The stone speaks, doesn't it? Whispers of gods and their secrets." Eirik glanced at the runestone, its glow pulsing faintly. "What does it mean? The gods sleep. Blood calls blood." The figure tilted its head, as if weighing him. "You read the old tongue." "More than most. But reading isn't knowing. The gods fought here, long ago. Their blood soaked the earth, and their power lingers. Touch the stone, and you'll see. Eirik's hand hovered over the runes, the memory of his last touch, lightning in his veins, visions of fallen gods still fresh. What's the price? He asked, echoing the stone's warning. The figure stepped closer, its boots silent on the snow. Everything, your life, your kin, your soul. The gods don't share their fire lightly. Eirik's throat tightened. He thought of his mother, her stories of hidden truths, her fearless heart. Had she touched the stone? Was that why she vanished? My mother came here, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Astrid, did you know her? The figure stiffened. Just for a moment. Astrid, it repeated, the name hanging in the air. She was like you, too curious. She sought the gods' secrets, and the Thornwood took her. Eirik's chest ached, like a wound torn open. Took her. She's dead. The figure didn't answer. It turned, slipping back into the shadows. Leave, boy, it said, voice fading, or the forest will claim you too. Wait, Eirik shouted, lunging forward. But the figure was gone, swallowed by the trees. He stood alone, the runestone glow the only light. His hands shook, not from cold but from anger, fear, hope. His mother had been here. She'd touched the stone, chased its secrets, and now he was following her path. He turned back to the runestone, its runes pulsing like a heartbeat. He wanted to touch it, to see the visions again, to know what his mother had known. But the figure's warning, the forest will claim you, stopped him. He wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, he pulled a small knife from his belt and carved a mark into a nearby tree. A simple slash to find the clearing again. He'd come back, but not alone. Thorvald would know what to do. Or Hrothgar, with his skald's wisdom. Someone had to. The trek back to Skjoldvik was long, the forest seeming to twist around him, paths shifting like a living thing. By the time he saw the village's torches, dawn was breaking, painting the sky red. He slipped into the longhouse, his body heavy with exhaustion. The hall was quiet, the fire low, embers glowing like the runnestone's runes. Thorvald was awake, sharpening his axe by the hearth. He looked up, his eyes narrowing. Where have you been, little brother? Sneaking off in the night? Eirik hesitated, the truth heavy on his tongue. The Thornwood, he said finally. I found the runestone again. Thorvald's hand stilled, the whetstone frozen mid-stroke. You're a fool, he growled. What did you see? Eirik told him about the stone, the runes, the hooded figure, the warning. He left out his mother, the pain too raw to share. Thorvald listened, his face darkening with each word. You're lucky you're alive, Thorvald said, when Eirik finished. The Thornwood's no place for boys playing at heroics. Stay away. But the runes, Eirik pressed. They spoke, of gods, of secrets. What if they're real? Thorvald stood, towering over him. Real or not, they're trouble. The Jarl will hear of this. He'll decide what's to be done. Eirik's stomach sank. The Jarl Olaf Blackaxe was a hard man, quick to punish. If he thought Eirik had stirred something dangerous, he'd lock him away or, worse. Don't tell him, Eirik said. Not yet. Let me find out more. Thorvald snorted. You've done enough. Get some sleep. You look like death. Eirik didn't argue. He lay on his furs, but sleep wouldn't come. The runestone's words spun in his mind, tangled with the figure's voice and his mother's memory. He had to go back, had to know. But Thorvald was watching him now, and the Jarl would soon know too. As the village woke, Eirik heard whispers outside the longhouse, talk of strange lights in the forest, of wolves howling closer than usual. The Thornwood was stirring, and Eirik knew he'd woken something. The price, whatever it was coming. Chapter 3. Blood on the frosty morning after Eirik's night in the Thornwood. Skjoldvik woke to a sky heavy with gray clouds. the kind that promised snow and trouble. Eirik stood outside the longhouse, his breath puffing white in the cold. His eyes stung from lack of sleep, but his mind buzzed with the runestone's words and the hooded figure's warning. Blood calls blood. The phrase clung to him like damp frost, chilling his bones. He tightened his cloak, the axe at his belt a small comfort against the unease gnawing at his gut. Thorvald had kept his word, saying nothing to the Jarl about Eirik's midnight trek, at least not yet. But his brother's silence was heavy, his glances sharp as a blade's edge. Eirik knew Thorvald was watching, waiting for him to slip up again. The village was already on edge. Whispers of strange lights in the Thornwood had spread, and the wolves' howls last night had set the elders muttering about omens. Eirik felt their eyes on him, as if they sensed he'd stirred something in the forbidden forest. He was hauling firewood to the hall when the horn sounded a low, mournful blast that froze the village. Raiders. Eirik dropped the logs, his heart lurching. He'd heard tales of rival clans striking from the sea, their longships slicing through fog to burn and plunder. Skjoldvik hadn't seen a raid in years, not since his father's spear had driven off the last attackers. But the horn didn't lie. Men spilled from the longhouses grabbing axes, spears, and shields. Women herded children inside, their faces tight with fear. Eirik ran to the hall, where Thorvald was already barking orders. To the shore, he roared, his war axe gleaming in the dim light. Shields up, blades ready. Eirik grabbed his small axe, its weight pitiful next to the warrior's weapons. Thorvald caught his arm, his grip like iron. Stay here, Eirik. Guard the hall. You're not ready for this. I can fight, Eirik snapped, yanking free. No, coward. Thorvald's eyes flashed, but he didn't argue. Stay close, then. Don't do anything stupid. The men charged toward the shore, their boots pounding the frozen ground. Eirik followed, his pulse racing. The sea was a gray churn, waves crashing against the rocks. 3 longships loomed through the mist, their prows carved with snarling wolves. Men poured onto the beach, their shields painted with red spirals, their axes raised. The Iron Fang clan, enemies from across the fjord, shields. Thorvald shouted. The Skjoldvik warriors formed a wall, their round shields overlapping, spears bristling. Eirik stood at the edge, his axe trembling in his hand. He'd trained with the boys swinging sticks at straw targets, but this was real. Blood would spill. The Iron Fangs charged, roaring like beasts. Axes clashed against shields, the sound like thunder. Thorvald met the first raider, his axe slicing through the man's shoulder. Blood sprayed red against the frost. Eirik froze, his breath shallow. A raider broke through, his eyes wild, his blade swinging for Eirik's head. Instinct took over. Eirik ducked, swinging his axe up. The blade caught the raider's arm, not deep, but enough to make him stumble. Thorvald finished him with a single blow, blood spattering Eirik's face. Move, Eirik, Thorvald yelled. Eirik snapped out of his daze, joining the shield wall. The fight was chaos, grunts, screams, the crunch of metal on wood. He swung his axe when he could, his arms burning, his mind a blur. The Iron Fangs were fierce, but Skjoldvik's warriors were fiercer. Slowly, the raiders fell back, their numbers thinning. Then Eirik saw him, the hooded figure from the Thornwood, standing at the edge of the battle, untouched by the chaos. His black furs blended with the mist, but his presence was unmistakable. He watched, silent, as blood soaked the snow. Eirik's stomach twisted. Was this the price the runestone warned of? Had he brought this raid by touching the stone? An Iron Fang broke through, his axe aimed at Eirik. He raised his small axe. But the blow was too heavy, knocking the weapon from his hand. The raider grinned, raising his blade again. Before it fell, Gunnar's spear pierced the man's chest, dropping him to the frost. Pay attention, boy, Gunnar growled, yanking Eirik back. The raid ended as fast as it began. The Iron Fangs fled to their ships, leaving their dead behind. Skjoldvik's warriors cheered, bloodied, but alive. Eirik panted, his hands shaking. He'd survived, but he felt no pride. His eyes searched for the hooded figure, but it was gone. Thorvald clapped his shoulder, his face grim despite the victory. You did well, little brother. But you're still green. Stay sharper next time. Eirik nodded, wiping blood from his cheek. His axe lay in the snow, its blade chipped. He retrieved it, the weight heavier now, as if it carried the raid's violence. The warriors dragged the Iron Fang dead to a pile, stripping their weapons and furs. Eirik noticed something odd. One of the raiders wore a pendant, a stone carved with a rune like those on the Thornwood stone. He knelt, prying it free. The rune was jagged, glowing faintly blue. Thorvald, Eirik called, holding up the pendant. Look at this. Thorvald frowned, taking the stone. Thornwood runes. Why would Iron Fangs carry this? Gunnar spat. They're meddling with things they shouldn't, like someone else I know. His eyes flicked to Eirik, sharp with suspicion. Eirik's face burned, but he held his tongue. The pendant felt warm in his hand, like the runestone's glow. The raid, the figure, the rune, they were connected, he was sure. But how, and why? Now, after he'd touched the stone. Back in the hall, the village mourned its losses. 2 warriors dead, 3 wounded. The Jarl, Olaf Blackaxe, stood before the fire, his voice booming. The Iron Fangs grow bold. We'll strike back, burn their ships, show them Skjoldvik's strength. The men roared, but Eirik's mind was elsewhere. He slipped away, finding Hrothgar by the hearth, his old hands carving a wooden charm. The Skald looked up, his eyes sharp. You saw something, lad. Speak. Eirik hesitated, then showed him the pendant. From an Iron Fang. It's like the runestone's marks. And I saw the hooded figure again, during the raid. Hrothgar's face tightened, his fingers pausing on the charm. Waking. You stirred it, touching that stone. Blood calls blood, and now it's spilling. Eirik's chest tightened. I didn't mean to. Intentions don't matter. Hrothgar cut in. The god's power is old, hungry. The Iron Fangs want it, same as your mother did. They'll come again. Eirik swallowed, his mother's name a knife in his heart. What do I do? Hrothgar leaned close, his voice low. Find the stone again. Learn its full truth before the Iron Fangs do. But be ready, lad. The price is steep. That night, Eirik lay on his furs, the pendant heavy in his hand. The raid's blood still stained his cloak, the memory of the hooded figure haunting him. The Thornwood was calling, its secrets tied to his mother, the runes, the raid. He'd go back, alone, if he had to. The truth was out there, and he'd pay whatever it cost to find it. Chapter 4. The Gods. Hollow snow fell in thick flakes, as Eirik slipped out of Skjoldvik before dawn. The village, still heavy with the weight of the raid. His boots crunched softly, muffled by the fresh powder. The pendant from the Iron Fang raider hung around his neck, its rune warm against his chest, like a coal smoldering under his tunic. He'd told no one, not Thorvald, not Hrothgar, where he was going. The Thornwood called him, its pull stronger than fear, stronger than the Jarl's wrath. The runestone's words, blood calls blood, echoed in his mind, tangled with Hrothgar's. Warning, learn its full truth before the Iron Fangs do. The forest loomed ahead, its black trees stark against the gray sky. Eirik's breath puffed white, his small axe heavy at his belt. The raid had changed something in him. He'd felt blood on his hands, seen death up close. He wasn't the boy who'd dreamed of glory by the fjord. The Thornwood wasn't just a story anymore. It was real, and it held answers about his mother, the runes, and the hooded figure that haunted his steps. He followed the slash he'd carved in the tree, his mark from 2 nights ago. The path felt different now, the air thicker, the shadows deeper. The trees seemed to lean closer, their branches scraping his cloak like claws. Every snap of a twig made him grip his axe, expecting the hooded figure, or worse. But the forest was silent, save for the wind's low moan. Hours passed before he found the clearing. The runestone stood as he'd left it, its jagged runes glowing faintly blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. But something was new. Beyond the stone, the ground dipped into a hollow, hidden by thorns and mist. Eirik hadn't noticed it during the hunt, nor on his last visit. It was as if the forest had opened a door. His skin prickled, the pendant growing warmer against his chest. He stepped toward the hollow, axe raised. The air hummed, a low vibration that buzzed in his teeth. The ground was soft, carpeted with moss and broken bones. Animal, he hoped, though some looked too large, too human. At the hollow's center stood a circle of stones, smaller than the runestone, but carved with the same sharp runes. They formed a ring like a crown sunk into the earth. Inside, the air shimmered, bending light like water. Eirik, single quotes S, heart pounded. This was no ordinary place. The skalds spoke of sacred groves, where gods once walked, where their power lingered like smoke. He whispered a prayer to Odin, his voice trembling. All-Father, guide me. Then he stepped into the ring. The world shifted. The air grew hot, heavy with the smell of iron and ash. His vision blurred, and the hollow vanished. He stood in a vast battlefield, sky red as blood, littered with broken spears and shattered shields. Figures fought around him, towering, their armor glowing like fire. Gods, he knew, though their faces were hidden by helms. One fell, its blood soaking the earth, and the ground shook, splitting open. A voice boomed, not in his ears but in his bones. Our fire is yours, but it will burn. Eirik gasped, stumbling back. The vision faded, and he was in the hollow again, his knees sinking into the moss. The pendant burned against his skin, and he yanked it off, dropping it to the ground. The rune on it glowed brighter, matching the stones around him. He scrambled to his feet, his chest tight. The gods had fought here, died here. This was their grave. A rustle broke his thoughts. He spun, axe raised, expecting the hooded figure. Instead, a girl stepped from the thorns, no older than him, her hair red as fire, braided tight. Her eyes were sharp, green as pine needles, and she carried a short spear tipped with black iron. Her furs were patched, her face smudged with dirt, but she moved with a hunter's grace. Who are you? Eirik demanded, his voice rough. She tilted her head, unafraid. Freya, and you're the fool, poking at things you don't understand. Eirik bristled, lowering his axe, but keeping it ready. You know this place. More than you, she said, stepping into the hollow. She glanced at the stones, her face tightening. The gods' hollow, where they fell. You shouldn't be here. You're here, Eirik shot back. What do you know about it? Freya's lips quirked, not quite a smile. I know the runes. I know the stories. My kin were skalds before yours were swinging axes. This place holds the gods' last gift and their curse. Eirik's eyes flicked to the pendant on the ground, its glow fading. The runes said, "Blood calls blood." What does it mean? Freya knelt, picking up the pendant. She turned it over, her fingers tracing the rune. It means power. The god's blood is in the earth. In these stones, touch them, and you might see what they saw, know what they knew. But it marks you. The forest knows you now. Eirik's throat tightened. I saw a battle. Gods dying. Their blood. You saw the truth. Freya cut in, her voice low. The gods fought here, long ago. Their power didn't die with them. It's here, waiting, but it's not for us. The Iron Fangs want it though. That's why they raided your village. Eirik's blood ran cold. How do you know about the raid? Freya stood, her eyes meeting his. I watch, I listen. The Iron Fangs have been sniffing around the Thornwood for months. They sent scouts, marked with runes like this. She held up the pendant. They think they can wield the god's fire. And you? Eirik asked, his grip tightening on his axe. What do you want? Freya's face hardened. To keep them from it. My mother tried, and it cost her life. I won't let the Iron Fangs or anyone wake what's buried here. Eirik's chest ached at the mention of her mother. My mother's gone too. Astrid. She came to the Thornwood 3 winters ago. Did you know her? Freya's eyes softened. Just for a moment. Astrid. Yes, she was brave, like you. She found this hollow, touched the stones. I was just a girl then, but I saw her. She spoke of truth, of saving the world. Then she vanished. Eirik's knees felt weak. Vanished. Where? Freya shook her head. The forest took her. Or the gods did. I don't know. Eirik wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the hollow's hum grew louder, drowning his thoughts. The stones glowed brighter, their runes pulsing. Freya grabbed his arm, pulling him back. Don't touch them again. Not yet. You're not. Ready? He yanked free, anger flaring. I need to know what happened to her. And you will, Freya said, her voice steady. But not like this. The god's power isn't a toy. It'll burn you, like it burned her. Eirik's hands shook, torn between rage and fear. He wanted to touch the stones, to see more, but Freya's words held him back. She knew more than she was saying, and he needed her help. Then come, with me, he said. Help me find the truth. Freya hesitated, her spear lowering. You're trouble, Eirik, but you're not wrong. The Iron Fangs will come back, and they'll find this place. We can't let them. A howl cut through the air, sharp and close. Wolves, too many, their cries echoing through the Thornwood. Freya's face paled. They're not normal wolves. The forest is waking. Eirik's pulse raced. What do we do? Run, Freya said, grabbing the pendant and shoving it into his hand. Back to your village. Tell your people to prepare. The Iron Fangs aren't the only threat now. They sprinted from the hollow, thorns snagging their cloaks. The wolves' howls grew louder, closer, their eyes glinting in the shadows. Eirik's legs burned, his breath ragged, but Freya was fast, leading him through paths he hadn't seen. The forest seemed to twist, trying to trap them, but Freya knew its ways. Dodging roots and ducking branches, they burst from the Thornwood. As the sun rose, its light weak through the snow. Skjoldvik's torches flickered in the distance, a promise of safety. Freya stopped, her breath heaving. Go, she said. I'll watch the forest. Find me here tomorrow, at dusk. Eirik nodded, clutching the pendant. Who are you, really? Freya's eyes glinted, fierce and sad. Someone who knows the cost of secrets. Don't be late. She vanished into the trees, leaving Eirik alone. The wolves' howls faded, but the pendant burned in his hand, its rune a silent warning. The god's hollow had shown him the god's truth, and now he was marked. The Iron Fangs, the wolves, the forest itself, they were coming for him, and deep in his heart, he knew his mother's fate was tied to it all. Chapter 5. Shadows of the Old Ones. Eirik stumbled into Skjoldvik as the sun climbed, its weak light barely warming the snow-dusted village. His chest heaved, the pendant from the god's hollow clutched tight in his fist, its rune still warm, like a coal against his skin. Freya's warning echoed in his head. The forest is waking. The wolves' howls had chased him through the Thornwood, their eerie cries fading only as he reached the village edge. He could still feel their eyes, glowing in the dark, not quite animal, not quite natural. The god's hollow had shown him a glimpse of the god's war, and now the forest seemed alive, angry, watching. The village was stirring, smoke curling. From longhouses, the clatter of pots mixing with the low voices of warriors sharpening blades. The raid's wounds lingered bloodstains on the snow, a widow's wail from a nearby hut. Eirik's heart pounded as he slipped toward the hall, hoping to avoid Thorvald's sharp eyes. He needed time to think, to make sense of Freya, the hollow, and the visions that burned in his mind. But Thorvald was waiting, leaning against the hall's doorframe, his war axe across his shoulder. His blond beard glinted with frost, his gaze hard as flint. "Out wandering again, little brother," he said, voice low but sharp. "You stink of the forest. Thornwood, I'm guessing." Eirik froze, the pendant hidden in his fist. "I had to check something," he muttered, avoiding Thorvald's eyes. Thorvald stepped closer, towering over him. "Check what you're chasing ghosts, Eirik. The Jarl's already sniffing around, asking about lights in the woods. If he hears you've been in the Thornwood again, he'll chain you to a post." Eirik's jaw tightened. "I found something. A hollow with stones like the runestone. Runes glowing, Thorvald. I saw things. Gods fighting, dying. It's real." Thorvald's face darkened, his hand gripping Eirik's shoulder. "You saw what visions? You're sounding like Mother, and look where that got her gone." Eirik flinched, the mention of Astrid like a blade in his gut. She was right to search. The Iron Fangs are after the same thing. They had a rune like the one I found. They'll come back. Thorvald's grip tightened, then released. He glanced around, making sure no one was close. "Keep your voice down. If the Jarl hears this, he'll think you're cursed or mad. Show me this rune." Eirik hesitated, then opened his hand, revealing the pendant. Its jagged rune caught, the light glowing faintly blue. Thorvald's breath hitched, his eyes narrowing. "God's work," he whispered. "Where did you get this?" "From the hollow," Eirik lied, not ready to admit he'd taken it from an Iron Fang. "There's more there, Thorvald. Stones in a circle, humming like they're alive. A girl, Freya, she knew about it. She said the god's power is buried there." Thorvald's face twisted, half disbelief, half fear. "A girl in the Thornwood. You're trusting some wildling now?" "She knew, Mother," Eirik said, his voice sharp. "She saw her there, 3 winters ago. She said the forest took her." Thorvald went still, his eyes searching Eirik's face. For a moment, the hardness in his brother softened, but it passed quickly. "Mother's gone, Eirik. Chasing her shadow will get you killed. Stay out of the Thornwood, that's an order." Eirik wanted to argue, but the weight of Thorvald's words stopped him. He nodded, slipping the pendant into his pocket. Thorvald turned back to the hall, muttering about the Jarl's counsel. Eirik watched him go, his mind racing. He couldn't stay away. Not now, not after the hollow, the visions, Freya's warning. The Iron Fangs were coming, and the forest was waking. He had to know more. That night, Eirik sat by the hearth in the longhouse. The fire's crackle drowning out the village's murmurs. Hrothgar, the skald, was carving a new charm, his knife scraping wood with slow, deliberate strokes. The old man's eyes flicked to Eirik, sharp as ever. "You've been to the Thornwood again," he said, not a question. Eirik tensed, glancing at the other warriors, but they were busy with mead and talk of the next raid. He leaned closer, voice low. "I found a hollowed stones with runes, like the runestone. I saw God's Hrothgar, fighting, bleeding. It felt real." Hrothgar's knife paused, his face grim. "The God's hollow. You're deeper in this than I thought, lad. Those visions are shadows of the old ones, the gods who fell. Their power lingers, and it's hungry." "What else did you see?" Eirik swallowed. The memory of the battlefield, vivid blood-soaked earth, glowing armor, a voice that shook his bones. A war, gods dying. A voice said their fire could be mine, but it would burn me. Hrothgar's eyes narrowed. "The fire of the gods is no gift. It's a curse. It burned your mother, drove her to the Thornwood. She sought their power, thought it could save us. She was wrong." Eirik's chest tightened, anger flaring. "She wasn't wrong. She was brave. I found a girl, Freya, who knew her, she said. Mother found the hollow, touched the stones. I need to know what happened to her. Hrothgar set down his charm, his hands trembling slightly. Freya, you say? A Skald's daughter, maybe. There were others who sought the Thornwood's secrets, years ago. Most never returned. If this girl knows the hollow, she's dangerous or doomed. Like you, if you keep this up. Eirik's hand closed around the pendant in his pocket. I can't stop. The Iron Fangs are after the same power. They'll come for the hollow. Hrothgar leaned forward, his voice a harsh whisper. Then you need to be smarter, lad. The gods' shadows don't just show you truth, they mark you. Every time you see them, they see you back. The Thornwood's waking because of you. A chill ran down Eirik's spine. What do I do? Go back, Hrothgar said, his eyes glinting. Find the hollow again, with this Freya. Learn the rune's full meaning. But don't touch the stones, not yet. And watch your back. The Iron Fangs aren't the only ones hunting. Eirik nodded, his throat dry. He left the hall, the pendant heavy in his pocket. The village slept, but the air felt wrong, too still, like the calm before a storm. He slipped to the edge of Skjoldvik, heading for the Thornwood to meet Freya at dusk, as she'd said. The forest loomed, its trees black against the fading light. Wolves howled in the distance, closer than last night, their cries sharp and unnatural. He found Freya waiting near his marked tree, her spear glinting in the dim light. Her red braid was tucked under a hood, her eyes scanning the shadows. You're late, she said, her voice sharp but low. I had to wait for the village to sleep, Eirik said, stepping closer. The wolves, are they still out there? Freya nodded, her face tight. They're not wolves, not anymore. The hollow's power is leaking, twisting things. You stirred it, Eirik. Eirik's stomach twisted. I didn't mean to. I saw more in the hollow gods fighting, dying. A voice said their fire could be mine. Freya's eyes widened, her spear lowering slightly. You saw the old ones. Their shadows are strong in you, too strong. She glanced at the pendant around his neck, its rune catching the moonlight. That's part of it. It's tied to the hollow, to their blood. What is it? Eirik asked, touching the pendant. Why do the Iron Fangs want it? Freya stepped closer, her voice a whisper. It's a key. The hollow stones are locked, hiding the gods' true power. That rune can open them, but it needs blood. Your blood, maybe, since you've touched the runestone. Eirik's hand froze on the pendant. Blood calls blood, he muttered, the runestone's words clicking into place. They want my blood. Or anyone's, Freya said. But you've seen the shadows. The gods know you now. That makes you a target. A low growl rumbled through the trees, cutting her off. Eirik spun, axe raised, as shapes moved in the dark wolves, but wrong, their eyes glowing red, their bodies too large, twisted. Freya grabbed his arm, pulling him back. Run, to the hollow. They sprinted, thorns tearing at their clothes. The wolves' growls followed, their paws pounding the earth. Eirik's heart hammered, his legs burning, as he followed Freya's lead. The hollow appeared ahead, its stones glowing brighter, the air humming with power. They dove into the ring, the wolves circling outside, unwilling to cross. Eirik panted, his axe trembling in his hand. Why don't they come in? The hollow's sacred, Freya said, her spear ready. Even they fear it, but they'll wait. We can't stay here forever. The stones pulsed, their runes flaring. Eirik's pendant burned against his chest, and another vision hit him, gods screaming, their blood pooling in the hollow. A figure in black furs watching from the shadows. The hooded figure, Eirik gasped, the vision fading. I saw him again, he said, voice shaking. The hooded man. He's tied to this. Freya's face paled. He's no man. He's a shadow, like the gods. A watcher, bound to the Thornwood. If he's following you, the price is already coming. Eirik's blood ran cold. The wolves howled, their eyes glowing in the dark. The hollow stones hummed, calling him to touch them, to see more. But Freya's warning, Hrothgar's words, the runestones, cursed, they held him back. The gods' shadows were watching, and the Thornwood was closing in. Chapter 6 Thornwood, where gods are buried, the gods' hollow pulsed, with a life of its own, the air thick with the hum of ancient power. Eirik crouched beside Freya, his small axe gripped tight, its blade catching the faint blue glow of the rune-covered stones, circling them. Outside the hollow, the twisted wolves paced, their red eyes glinting like embers in the dark. Their growls were low, guttural, not quite animal, as if the Thornwood itself spoke through them. Eirik's heart thudded, the pendant around his neck burning against his skin. The vision of the hooded figure lingered in his mind, shadow watching, bound to the forest, tied to the god's blood. Freya's spear was steady, her green eyes scanning the wolves. "They won't cross the stones," she whispered, her voice calm but tight. "The hollow's power keeps them out, but we can't. Stay here. The forest is waking, and it's angry." Eirik's throat was dry, his fingers trembling on the axe handle. "What are they? Those wolves there, not right." Freya's lips pressed thin. The god's blood did this. When they fell, their power soaked the earth. It twists things. People, anything that lingers too long. Those wolves were normal once. Now they're the Thornwood's claws. Eirik glanced at the pendant, its rune pulsing in time with the stones. "And this? You said it's a key. To what?" Freya's eyes flicked to the pendant, then to the largest stone in the circle, its runes deeper, more jagged than the others. "To the tomb," she said. "Beneath this hollow, the gods are buried. Their true power is locked there, sealed by blood. That rune can open it, but it needs a sacrifice." Eirik's stomach twisted. "Blood calls blood," he muttered, the runestone's words heavy in his chest. "My blood? Maybe," Freya said, her voice low. "You've touched the runestone, seen the shadows. The gods know you now. That makes you part of this, whether you want it or not." A wolf snapped its jaws, closer now, testing the hollow's edge. Eirik flinched, his axe raised. "We can't fight them all. How do we get out?" Freya's eyes darted to the central stone. "There's a path, underground. My mother spoke of it, a tunnel from the hollow to the heart of the Thornwood. It leads to the tomb." Eirik's pulse quickened. "The tomb, where the gods are buried." Freya nodded, her face grim. "It's dangerous. The tunnel's old, cursed. But it's our only way out without facing the wolves." Eirik's mind raced. The tomb. His mother had sought it, Freya said. Maybe she'd found it. Maybe she was still there, trapped or hiding. He couldn't turn back now, not with the wolves circling, the pendant burning, the god's shadows whispering in his head. "Show me," he said. Freya hesitated, then knelt by the central stone, her fingers brushing its runes. "Help me," she said. "Push." Eirik set his axe down and pressed his hands against the stone. It was cold, unnaturally so, but it shifted under their weight, grinding against the earth. A hollow groan echoed, and the ground opened, revealing a dark tunnel, its walls slick with moss and etched with faint runes. The air that rose from it smelled of decay and iron, like a battlefield left to rot. Freya grabbed her spear, standing. "Stay close. The tomb's no place for mistakes." Eirik nodded, retrieving his axe. The wolves' growls grew louder, as if they sensed their escape. He followed Freya into the tunnel, the darkness swallowing them as the stone slid shut above. The pendant's glow lit their way, faint but steady, casting shadows that danced like ghosts on the walls. The tunnel was narrow, its ceiling low, forcing Eirik to duck. Roots dangled like spiderwebs, brushing his face. The runes on the walls were old, their shapes twisted, some glowing faintly, others dark as if burned out. Each step felt heavier, the air pressing against his chest. Freya moved ahead, her spear ready, her steps sure, despite the dark. "How do you know this place?" Eirik asked, his voice echoing. "My mother," Freya said, not looking back. She was a skald, like her mother before her. She studied the Thornwood, its secrets. She taught me the runes, the paths. She said the tomb held the gods' last gift of power to change the world. But she never came back from it. Eirik's heart clenched. My mother, Astrid, she was like that, always chasing stories. She came here, didn't she? Freya glanced back, her eyes softening. Yes, she and my mother met, years ago. They searched the Thornwood together. Astrid was fearless, but she didn't understand the cost. Neither did my mother. Eirik's throat tightened, but before he could speak, the tunnel widened, opening into a vast chamber. The air grew colder, the pendant's glow flaring bright. Stone walls loomed, carved with scenes of gods and battle axes raised, skies burning, blood pooling in rivers. At the chamber's center stood a massive slab, black as night, its surface etched with runes that pulsed like a dying star. Bones littered the floor, some animal, some not. Eirik's skin crawled. This was the tomb. Freya stopped, her spear lowering. "This is it," she whispered, "where the gods are buried." Eirik stepped forward, the pendant burning hotter. The slab's runes glowed in response, their light pulling at him, like a voice begging him to touch. He saw flashes gods falling, their screams shaking the earth. A figure in black furs watching, always watching. The hooded figure. Eirik's hand hovered over the slab, drawn to its power. "Don't," Freya snapped, grabbing his wrist. "Not yet. The tomb's sealed for a reason. Open it, and the god's fire will wake. You'll bring the Thornwood down on us all." Eirik pulled back, his hand shaking. "Then why bring me here?" "Because you need to see," Freya said, her voice fierce. "The Iron Fangs know about the tomb. They're coming, Eirik. If they open it, their clan will wield the god's power. They'll burn Skjoldvik, every village, everything." Eirik, mind spun. The visions, the pendant, the wolves, it was all tied to this place. "What do we do?" Freya's eyes flicked to the slab, then to him. "We hide the key, your pendant. Without it, the tomb stays locked. But we need to move fast. The Iron Fangs have scouts in the Thornwood. And the Watcher, the hooded figure, he's close." A low rumble shook the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling. The wolves' howls echoed, distant but growing louder, as if they'd found a way. Into the tunnel, Eirik's heart raced. "They're coming." Freya nodded, her spear raised. "Back to the tunnel. We need to get out. Hide the pendant. Warn your village." They ran, the pendant's glow lighting their path. The tunnel seemed to twist, its runes flaring as they passed. Eirik's legs burned, his breath ragged, but Freya was faster, leading him through turns he hadn't noticed before. The wolves' howls grew closer, their claws scraping stone. Eirik glanced back, seeing red eyes in the dark. Too many, too fast. They burst into another chamber, smaller, with a single exit blocked by roots. Freya slashed at them with her spear, but they were thick, unyielding. "Help me," she shouted. Eirik swung his axe, chopping at the roots. They bled, a dark sap that smelled of iron, stinging his eyes. The wolves were close now, their growls shaking the air. Freya broke through, pulling Eirik into the open air. They were back in the Thornwood, the hollow behind them, the wolves' eyes glowing through the trees. "Run," Freya yelled, sprinting toward Skjoldvik. Eirik followed, the pendant bouncing against his chest. The wolves chased their howls, a chorus of hunger. The forest seemed to help them, branches snapping at Eirik's face, roots tripping his feet. But Freya was a shadow, weaving through the trees, her spear a blur. They reached the village edge as dawn broke, the wolves' cries. Fading Skjoldvik's torches flickered, unaware of the danger. Eirik panted, his hand on the pendant. "What now?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Freya's eyes were hard, her spear still ready. "Hide the pendant. Tell your Jarl about the Iron Fangs, but not the tomb, not yet. They'll think you're mad. Meet me at dusk, by the marked tree. We'll plan our next move." Eirik nodded, his chest tight. The tomb's power, the god's fire, his mother's fate, it was all real, and it was on him now. The hooded figure was out there, watching. The wolves were waiting, and the Iron Fangs were coming. He clutched the pendant, its rune, a silent promise of truth, and a curse he couldn't escape. Chapter 7. The Skull's Betrayal. Eirik stumbled into Skjoldvik as the first light of dawn painted the snow pink, his legs heavy from the sprint through the Thornwood. The pendant hung like a stone around his neck, its rune warm, pulsing faintly, as if alive. Freya's words rang in his ears. "Hide the pendant. Tell your Jarl about the Iron Fangs, but not the tomb." The wolves' howls had faded, but their red eyes haunted him, glinting in his memory like the gods' shadows from the tomb. He clutched his axe, its chipped blade a reminder of how close he'd come to death in the tunnel. The village was waking, the smell of smoke and baking bread mixing with the sharp temps of frost. Warriors sharpened weapons outside the hall, their voices low, still raw from the raid. Eirik slipped toward the longhouse, hoping to avoid Thorvald's questions. His brother would smell the Thornwood on him, would know he'd disobeyed. But he had to warn the Jarl about the Iron Fangs, had to make them see the danger without revealing the tomb's secret. Inside the hall, the air was thick with the heat of the hearth. Jarl Olaf Blackaxe sat on his carved chair, his broad frame draped in furs, his eyes like chips of ice. Thorvald stood beside him, reporting on the raid's aftermath, his war axe leaning against the wall. Hrothgar, the skald, sat near the fire, his old hands carving a wooden charm, his gaze flicking to Eirik as he entered. "You're late, boy," Olaf growled, his voice rough as gravel. "Where have you been? We don't need dreamers when the Iron Fangs are sniffing around." Eirik's heart pounded, but he kept his face steady. "The Thornwood," he said, ignoring Thorvald's sharp look. "The Iron Fangs are planning something. They've got scouts in the forest, carrying runes like this." He pulled the pendant from his pocket. Its glow dim but unmistakable. Olaf's eyes narrowed, leaning forward. "Runes, show me." Eirik handed the pendant over, his fingers reluctant to let it go. Olaf turned it in his thick hands, the rune catching the firelight. "God's work," he muttered. "Where'd you get this?" "From an Iron Fang during the raid," Eirik lied, sticking to Freya's advice. "They're after something, in the Thornwood, something powerful." Thorvald stepped closer, his jaw tight. "You were told to stay out of that forest, Eirik. What else did you see?" Eirik hesitated, the tomb's visions flashing, gods bleeding, the hooded figure watching, the slab pulsing with power. "Just the forest," he said, his voice low, "and wolves, not normal ones. The Iron Fangs are stirring something," Olaf snorted, tossing the pendant back to Eirik. "Wolves and runes, sounds like Skald's tales, but the Iron Fangs are bold, I'll give you that. We'll send a war party, burn their camp before they try another raid." Hrothgar's knife paused, his eyes sharp on Eirik. "Careful, lad," he said, his voice low so only Eirik heard. "You're playing with fire older than this hall." Eirik nodded, slipping the pendant back into his pocket. He left the hall, his mind spinning. Olaf would act, but not fast enough. The Iron Fangs were already in the Thornwood, and the tombs. Power was waking. He had to meet Freya at dusk, had to hide the pendant before it fell into the wrong hands. As he stepped outside, Hrothgar followed, his steps slow but deliberate. "You didn't tell them everything," the skald said, his voice a whisper. "The hollow, the tomb, what did you find?" Eirik's chest tightened. He trusted Hrothgar, but Freya's warning held him back. "Just runes," he said, And a girl, Freya. She knows the Thornwood, says the Iron Fangs want its power. Hrothgar's face darkened, his fingers clutching his charm. Freya. Mother was Inga, a skald like me. She died chasing the same secrets as your mother. Be wary, lad. That girl's got her own reasons. Eirik frowned. You know her. I know her kind, Hrothgar said. Skalds see too much, want too much. Like Astrid, like you. Hide that pendant, and don't trust anyone, not even me. Eirik's skin prickled. Hrothgar's words felt like a blade, sharp and cold. He nodded, turning away, but the gaze burned into his back. The village felt smaller, its shadows longer, as if the Thornwood's curse had followed him home. At dusk, Eirik slipped out, the pendant hidden under his tunic. The marked tree stood at the forest's edge, its slash stark against the bark. Freya was there, her red braid tucked under her hood, her spear glinting in the fading light. You're late again, she said, her voice sharp but her eyes searching. His face. Did you tell them? Enough, Eirik said, glancing back at the village. The Jarl's planning a war party against the Iron Fangs. I showed them the pendant, said it was from the raid. Freya's lips twitched, almost a smile. Smart, but the pendant's not safe here. The tomb's key can't stay in Skjoldvik. Eirik's hand closed around it, the rune's warmth seeping into his palm. Where do we hide it? Freya pointed north, deeper into the Thornwood. There's a cave, hidden by thorns. My mother used it to store her rune carvings. It's safe for now. Eirik nodded, but Hrothgar's warning echoed. Don't trust anyone. He followed Freya into the forest, the trees closing around them like a trap. The wolves were silent tonight, but the air felt heavy, charged, as if the Thornwood held its breath. Freya led him through twisting paths, her steps sure, until they reached a wall of thorns. Their spikes glinting like teeth, she pushed through a narrow gap, revealing a cave mouth, dark and damp. Inside, the walls were carved with runes, some glowing faintly, others scratched out. Freya knelt, pulling a loose stone from the floor, revealing a small hollow. Put it here, she said. Eirik hesitated, the pendant heavy in his hand. How do I know you won't take it? Freya's eyes flashed, but she didn't flinch. You don't. But I've lost as much to the Thornwood as you have. I want to stop the Iron Fangs, not help them. Eirik's gut churned, but he placed the pendant in the hollow, watching as Freya sealed it with the stone. The cave felt colder without its warmth, but safer, too. What now? He asked. We watch, Freya said, standing. The Iron Fangs will come for the tomb. We need to know their plan. As they left the cave, a twig snapped behind them. Eirik spun, axe raised, but saw nothing, just shadows. Freya's spear was ready, her eyes scanning the dark. Someone's here, she whispered. They moved silently, back towards, but the feeling of being watched never left. At the village edge, Freya vanished into the trees, promising to meet again at dawn. Eirik slipped into the longhouse, his heart pounding. The fire was low, the hall quiet, but Hrothgar sat by the hearth, his eyes glinting. You hit it, the skald said, not looking up from his carving. Good, but you're being followed. Eirik froze, his hand on his axe. By who? Knife paused, his voice low. I heard you leave. I followed. I saw you with the girl, saw the cave. But I'm not the only one watching, lad. Eirik's blood ran cold. You spied on me. For your own good, Hrothgar said, his eyes meeting Eirik's. The Iron Fangs have spies in Skjoldvik. Someone in this hall is feeding them word. I've heard whispers, seen runes passed in secret. Trust no one. Eirik's mind reeled. A traitor, in the village. He thought of Torvald's anger, Olaf's cold eyes, the warrior's glances. Who? He demanded. Hrothgar shook his head. I don't know yet. But the pendant's safe for now. Keep your eyes open, lad. The god's fire draws greed like moths. Eirik lay on his furs, sleep far off. Hrothgar's betrayal spying, following cut deep, but the idea of a traitor in Skjoldvik was worse. The tomb's power was waking, pulling the Iron Fangs the wolves, the hooded figure closer, and now, someone in his own village was against him. The pendant was hidden, but the Thornwood's curse was tightening its grip, and Eirik knew the price was coming, fast. Chapter 8. The Blade of Ymir. Eirik woke to the clang of iron and the shouts of warriors, his heart already racing before his eyes opened. The longhouse was alive with movement, men pulling on furs and grabbing weapons. Outside, Skjoldvik buzzed, with purpose, the air sharp with frost and the promise of blood. Jarl Olaf had called a war party to strike the Iron Fangs camp, and the village was readying for battle. Eirik's mind spun with Hrothgar's warning from the night before. Someone in this hall is feeding them word. A traitor in Skjold, and he'd hidden the pendant in the Thornwood's cave, trusting Freya, a girl he barely knew. The weight of it all pressed on his chest, heavier than the axe at his belt. He slipped outside, the pendant's absence a cold spot against his skin. The village square was chaos warriors sharpening blades, women packing provisions, children darting underfoot. Torvald stood at the center, barking orders, his war axe gleaming. His eyes caught Eirik's narrowing. "You're with us, little brother," he called. "No slipping off this time. We hit the Iron Fangs at dusk." Eirik nodded, his throat tight. He wanted to tell Torvald about the tomb, the hooded figure, the traitor, but Hrothgar's words held him back. Trust no one. Instead, he checked his axe, its chipped blade pitiful next to the warrior's weapons. He wasn't ready for a real battle, but the Iron Fangs were tied to the Thornwood's secrets, to his mother's fate. He had to go, as the war party gathered. Eirik slipped away to meet Freya at dawn, as promised. The marked tree stood at the forest's edge, its slash stark against the bark. Freya was there, her red braid hidden under her hood, her spear propped against a rock. Her green eyes flicked over him, sharp as ever. "You look like you slept in a wolf's den," she said, her voice low. "No sleep," Eirik muttered, glancing back at the village. "The Jarl's sending a war party to the Iron Fangs camp. I'm going with them." Freya's face tightened. "You can't. The Iron Fangs know the Thornwood's power. They'll be ready, and if they've got a spy in your village, they'll know you're coming." Eirik's stomach twisted. "You know about the spy?" Freya nodded, her spear in hand. "Now, my mother taught me to watch, to listen. I've seen men from Skjoldvik meeting Iron Fangs in the forest, passing runes, whispering plans. Someone's betraying you, Eirik, and they're after the pendant." Eirik's hand went to his chest, where the pendant used to hang. "It's hidden, in the cave, like you said. But I need to know what we're fighting for. The tomb, what's in it?" Freya's eyes darkened, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The gods, fire, a weapon, a power, something that can break the world, or save it. My mother called it the Blade of Ymir, forged from the first giant's bones, imbued with the god's blood. The Iron Fangs think they can wield it." Eirik's breath caught. A weapon of the gods. His mother had chased it, and it had cost her everything. "Where is it?" "In the tomb," Freya said, "locked by the pendant's rune. That's why they want it. That's why the forest is waking wolves, shadows, all of it. The Blade of Ymir is stirring." A horn blasted from the village, calling the war party. Eirik glanced back, his heart pounding. "I have to go." "Come with me, Freya. We'll face them together." Freya shook her head. "I'll watch the Thornwood guard the cave. You warn your people, but don't trust them. The spy's close, Eirik, maybe closer than you think." She vanished into the trees, leaving Eirik alone. Her words gnawed at him. "Closer than you think, Torvald Olaf, Hrothgar." He pushed the thought down and ran back to the village, joining the war party as they marched north, toward the Iron Fangs camp. The trek was long, the snow deep, the air biting. 30 warriors moved in silence, their shields painted with Skjoldvik's raven's sigil. Thorvald lead, his face grim, his axe ready. Eirik stayed close, his small axe feeling lighter with every step, as if the Thornwood's pull was growing. The forest thickened, pines giving way to the Thornwoods, gnarled oaks, their branches like claws. The air hummed, faint but familiar, like the gods' hollow. They reached the Iron Fang's camp at dusk, a cluster of tents by a frozen river, their wolf-prow longships moored nearby. Thorvald raised a hand, signaling the warriors to spread out. Ulrich's pulse raced, his eyes scanning for the hooded figure, for any sign of the runes. The camp seemed quiet, too quiet, as if waiting. Then it came a scream, sharp and human, from the trees. The warriors froze, shields up. Thorvald cursed, his axe raised. Ambush. He roared. Iron fangs burst from the shadows, their red spiral, shields glinting, their axes swinging. The battle was chaos, metal clashing, blood spraying on the snow. Eirik swung his axe, catching an Iron Fang's arm, but the man kept coming, his eyes wild, glowing faintly red, like the wolves. Eirik ducked, rolling away, his heart hammering. These weren't normal men. Thorvald fought like a storm, his axe a blur, cutting down to raiders. But more came, to many. Eirik saw it then, a figure at the camp's edge, cloaked in black furs. The hooded figure from the Thornwood. It held a blade, long and black, its edge glowing blue, like the runes. The Blade of Ymir. Eirik's blood ran cold. The Iron Fangs had it, but how? The pendant was hidden, the tomb sealed. He fought his way toward the figure, dodging blows, his axe striking when he could. The hooded figure turned, its face hidden, but its eyes burned through the shadows, locking on Eirik. It raised the blade, and a voice echoed in his mind, not his ears. "You woke us, boy. Now you pay." A vision hit him, gods bleeding, the slab in the tomb cracking, blue fire spilling out. The Blade of Ymir pulsed in the figure's hand, its power shaking the earth. Eirik stumbled, his axe slipping. An Iron Fang's blade grazed his arm, blood welling hot. Thorvald yanked him back, his shout distant. "Eirik, move!" The warriors rallied, pushing the Iron Fangs back, but the hooded figure was gone, the blade with it. The camp burned, tents collapsing in flames, but the victory felt hollow. Eirik's arm throbbed, his mind reeling. The Blade of Ymir was real, and the Iron Fangs had it. The pendant hadn't opened the tombs, someone else had. Back in Skjoldvik, the warriors celebrated, their wounds bandaged, their mead flowing. Eirik sat by the hearth, his arm wrapped, the pain dull but constant. Thorvald clapped his shoulder, grinning. "You fought well, little brother. Not so soft now." Eirik forced a smile, but his eyes found Hrothgar across the hall. The skald was quiet, his charm-carving hands still, his gaze heavy. Eirik slipped over, his voice low. "The Iron Fangs have a blade, glowing like the runes. Freya called it the Blade of Ymir." Hrothgar's face paled, his fingers tightening on his knife. "Impossible. The tomb's sealed. Unless..." His eyes flicked to Thorvald, then back to Eirik, the spy. "They got to the tomb first. Someone told them where to look." Eirik's heart sank. The pendant was safe, but the blade was loose. The hooded figure, the wolves, the gods fire it, was all coming for Skjoldvik, and the traitor was still here, watching, waiting. Eirik's hand closed around his axe, his mother's voice whispering, "The truth lies where others fear to tread." He'd find the spy, find the blade, and face the god's price, no matter what it cost. Chapter 9. Wolves of the Eternal Night. The fire in Skjoldvik's longhouse crackled, casting shadows that danced like ghosts on the walls. Eirik sat near the hearth, his wounded arm throbbing under its bandage, the memory of the iron glowing blade burning in his mind. The Blade of Ymir, Freya had called it, forged from a giant's bones, pulsing with the god's blood. The hooded figure had held it, its blue glow searing Eirik's vision, its voice in his head. You woke us. Boy, now you pay. Hrothgar's warning about a traitor gnawed at him, sharper than the pain in his arm. Someone in the village had led the Iron Fangs to the tomb, and the Blade of Ymir was loose. Outside, the night was dark, the sky heavy with clouds that hid the stars. The village celebrated the war party's victory, mead flowing, warriors boasting of their kills. But Eirik felt no joy. The Iron Fangs had retreated, their camp burned, but the hooded figure had vanished with the blade. The Thornwood was stirring, its wolves howling closer each night, their cries unnatural, hungry. He clutched his axe, its chipped blade a weak shield against the growing dread. Thorvald slumped beside him, his face flushed with mead, his war axe propped against the bench. You fought like a man today, he said, his voice thick. Father would have been proud. Eirik's chest tightened at the mention of their father, Bjorn Ironspear, dead 3 winters ago. I'm not done fighting, he muttered, his eyes on the fire. The Iron Fangs have something, a blade, glowing like the runes. It's from the Thornwood. Thorvald's grin faded, his hand tightening on his mug. You're still on about that forest. Let it go, Eirik. We hit the Iron Fangs hard. They won't come back soon. They will, Eirik said, his voice low. They've got a weapon, Thorvald. Something old, powerful, and someone here helped them get it. Thorvald's eyes narrowed, his body tensing. You're talking treason. Careful, little brother. Words like that get you a noose. Eirik held his gaze, Hrothgar's warning echoing. The spy's close. Was it Thorvald? His brother was loyal, fierce, but he'd been quick to shut Eirik down about the Thornwood. Too quick. Eirik pushed the thought away, but it lingered like a splinter. He left the hall, the cold air biting his face as he stepped into the night. The village was quiet now, the celebration fading, but the wolves' howls rolled from the Thornwood, closer than ever. Their cries were wrong, too deep, too many, like a chorus of the damned. Eirik's skin prickled. He had to find Freya, had to know what the Blade of Ymir meant, how to stop it. He slipped to the marked tree at the forest's edge, his boots crunching on fresh snow. Freya was there, her spear glinting in the moonlight, her red braid tucked under her hood. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the dark. You're late, she said, her voice low, and you're hurt. Eirik touched his bandaged arm, the pain sharp but bearable. Iron Fangs ambushed us. They've got the blade. Freya, I saw it, glowing like the runes. The hooded figure had it. Freya's face paled, her spear lowering slightly. The Blade of Ymir. They opened the tomb without the pendant. Someone else knew its secret. Eirik's stomach twisted. Hrothgar says there's a traitor in Skjoldvik. Someone told the Iron Fangs about the tomb. Freya nodded, her eyes flicking to the village. I've seen them, men meeting in the shadows, passing runes. The traitor's clothes. Eirik, maybe in your hall. Eirik's throat tightened. I don't know who to trust. Thorvald, Olaf, Hrothgar. They all act like I'm mad, but they're hiding something. Freya stepped closer, her voice a whisper. Then we trust each other. The Blade of Ymir is awake, and the Thornwood knows it. Those wolves there not just twisted, they're the eternal night, born from the god's blood, bound to the blade. They'll come for Skjoldvik next. A howl split the air, so close it shook the trees. Eirik spun, axe raised, as red eyes glowed through the dark wolves. Dozens, their bodies massive, their fur matted with thorns. They moved like shadows, silent now, circling the village edge. Freya grabbed his arm, pulling him back. They're here, she hissed. We need to warn your people. They ran to the village, the wolves' eyes trailing them, their growls low and hungry. Eirik burst into the hall, shouting, wolves, at the edge. They're not normal. Get your weapons. The warriors scrambled, grabbing axes and spears, their mead-fogged eyes clearing. Olaf stood, his black axe in hand, his voice booming. To the walls. Protect the village. Eirik followed, his small axe ready, Freya at his side. The warriors formed a line at the village edge, shields up, torches flaring. The wolves emerged from the thornwood, their red eyes glowing, their teeth bared. They were huge, bigger than any wolf Eirik had seen, their bodies twisted with thorns that bled dark sap. And behind them, in the shadows, stood the hooded figure, the Blade of Ymir, glowing blue in its hand. Gods help us, Thorvald muttered, his axe raised. The wolves charged, a wave of teeth and claws. Eirik swung his axe, catching one in the shoulder, but it barely slowed, its thorns slashing his arm. Freya's spear pierced another, dark blood spraying, but more came, relentless. The warriors fought hard, their shields splintering, their blades biting deep, but the wolves were too many, too strong. Eirik saw the hooded figure move, its blade raised, blue fire trailing its edge. A warrior screamed as the blade cut through his shield, his body crumpling, burned from within. Eirik's heart pounded. The Blade of Ymir wasn't just a weapon, it was death itself. Fall back, Olaf roared, his axe dripping blood. The warriors retreated, dragging their wounded, but the wolves pressed closer, their howls shaking the night. Eirik and Freya fought side by side, her spear a blur, his axe striking where he could. They reached the hall, barricading the door, but the wolves' claws scraped outside, relentless. Inside, the air was thick with fear. Olaf's face was grim, his eyes on Eirik. You brought this, boy, he growled. Your meddling in the thornwood woke these beasts. Eirik's face burned, but Freya stepped forward, her voice sharp. He didn't bring them, the Eirik did, with that blade. It's the gods' fire, and they've unleashed it. Olaf's eyes narrowed, but before he could speak, Hrothgar stepped from the shadows, his voice calm but heavy. She's right. The Blade of Ymir is loose, and the eternal night follows. Eirik, you've seen the gods' shadows. You're tied to this. Eirik's chest tightened. How do we stop it? Hrothgar's eyes flicked to the door, where the wolves' growls grew louder. The pendant. It's the key to the tomb, to the blade's power. Find it, use it, or destroy it. But you'll need to face the Watcher, the hooded figure. He's no man, Eirik. He's the god's shadow, bound to their fire. A crash shook the hall, the door splintering. The wolves were breaking through. Eirik gripped his axe, Freya's spear beside him. The traitor was still out there, the Blade of Ymir, in the hooded figure's hands. And the wolves of the eternal night were at the door. Eirik's mother had faced this power and vanished. Now, it was his turn, and the price was closing in. Chapter 10. The Seer's Prophecy. The longhouse shook, as the wolves of the eternal night clawed at the door. Their growls a chorus of hunger and rage. Eirik gripped his axe, its chipped blade slick with sweat, his wounded arm burning under its bandage. Freya stood beside him, her spear ready, her green eyes fierce in the firelight. The warriors of Skjoldvik formed a ragged line, shields cracked, blades bloodied. Jarl Olaf's face was stone, his black axe raised, but fear flickered in his eyes. The Blade of Ymir was out there, in the hooded figure's hands, its blue fire cutting through men like a scythe. Hrothgar's words hung heavy. The pendant. Find it, use it, or destroy it. The door splintered, a wolf's massive head breaking through, thorns dripping dark sap. Freya thrust her spear, piercing its eye. It howled, retreating, but more pressed in, their red eyes glowing through the gaps. Hold the line, Olaf roared, swinging his axe into another beast. The hall filled with screams, and the stench of blood. Eirik's heart pounded, his mind racing. The pendant was hidden in the Thornwood's cave, safe for now, but the Blade of Ymir was awake, and the hooded figure the Watcher was coming. He glanced at Freya, her face set, her spear bloodied. We can't stay here, he whispered. We need to get the pendant. Freya nodded, her eyes flicking to the back of the hall. There's a trap door, under the firs. Leads to a tunnel. My mother told me about it. We can get to the Thornwood. Eirik hesitated, looking at Torvald, who fought beside Olaf, his war axe a blur. Leaving meant abandoning his brother, his village. But staying meant death, and the pendant was their only chance to stop the blade. "Lead the way," he said. They slipped to the back, lifting a pile of furs to reveal a wooden trapdoor. The warriors didn't notice, too focused on the wolves breaking through. Freya pried it open, revealing a dark tunnel, its air damp and cold. Eirik grabbed a torch from the wall, its flame flickering as they descended. The sounds of battle faded, replaced by the drip of water and the echo of their steps. The tunnel was narrow, its walls rough with roots and faint runes, like those in the tomb. Eirik's torch cast shadows that moved like living things, making his skin crawl. "Where does this lead?" he asked, his voice low. "Outside the village, near the marked tree," Freya said, her spear tapping the ground. "We'll get the pendant, then find a way to stop the blade." Eirik's chest tightened. Hrothgar said, "The Watcher's not human. A shadow of the gods. How do we fight that?" Freya's face was grim. "We don't. Not yet. The pendant's the key. It can lock the tomb again, bind the blade's power. But we need help." They emerged from the tunnel into the Thornwood, the night black and heavy, the wolves' howls, distant but relentless. The marked tree stood ahead, its slash a pale scar. Freya led the way, her steps sure, but Eirik felt eyes on him. The watchers gazed like a blade at his neck. They reached the cave, its thorn-covered mouth, dark and silent. Freya knelt, pulling the stone from the floor, revealing the pendant. Its rune glowed blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. Eirik took it, its warmth spreading through his hand. "Now what?" Freya stood, her eyes scanning the trees. "We find the seer. My mother spoke of her, a woman who sees the gods' will. She lives deep in the Thornwood, in a cave by the Black River. She'll know how to use the pendant." A twig snapped, sharp in the silence. Eirik spun, axe raised, but saw nothing. The air grew colder, the pendant burning hotter. "He's here," Eirik whispered, his voice shaking. "The Watcher." Freya's spear was up, her body tense. "Move. Now." They ran, the Thornwood closing around them, branches snagging their cloaks. The wolves' howls grew louder, joined by a low hum, like the tomb's power. Eirik's legs burned, his torch flickering as they dodged roots and thorns. Freya led him through paths he'd never seen, her knowledge of the forest uncanny. The Black River appeared, its water dark as ink, reflecting the pendant's glow. A cave loomed by the riverbank, its mouth hidden by vines. Freya pushed through, Eirik following. Inside, the air was warm, thick with the smell of herbs and smoke. A fire burned low, its light revealing an old woman, her hair white as snow, her eyes milky but sharp. Runes were carved into her staff, glowing faintly, like the pendant. "You're late," the seer said, her voice like dry leaves. "The gods' fire burns, and the eternal night hunts." Eirik's throat tightened. "You know why we're here." The seer's eyes locked on him, seeing through him. "Eirik, son of Astrid, you carry her curse, her hunger for truth. The pendant marks you, and the Blade of Ymir calls you. Sit." They knelt by the fire, the pendant heavy in Eirik's hand. Freya's spear rested across her lap, her eyes on the cave mouth. The seer leaned forward, her staff tapping the ground. "The gods' war never ended," she said. "Their blood soaked the Thornwood, birthing the blade, the wolves, the Watcher. You woke them, boy." Touching the runestone, Eirik's face burned. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to find my mother." The seer's lips curled. Not quite. A smile. Astrid sought the same. She touched the tomb, saw the god's fire. It consumed her, bound her to the Thornwood. "She's not gone, but she's not here." Eirik's heart lurched. "She's alive." The seer's eyes darkened. "In a way. The gods' shadows hold her in the tomb's heart. To free her, you must face the Watcher, wield the pendant, and seal the blade's power. But the price is steep. Freya's voice was sharp. What price? The seer's staff tapped again, the runes flaring. Blood. The pendant needs it to lock the tomb. Yours, Eirik, or another's. But beware, the Blade of Ymir tempts all who touch it, even you. Eirik's hand tightened on the pendant, its warmth like a warning, and the iron thongs. They seek the blade's power, the seer said. Their spy in Skjoldvik opened the tomb, gave them the blade. They'll burn the world to keep it. You must act before they do. A howl shook the cave, so close the fire flickered. Freya stood, spear ready. They've found us. The seer rose, her staff glowing brighter. Go to the tomb, use the pendant, face the Watcher. But know this, Eirik, the god's fire will test you. Pass, and you may save your mother, your village. Fail, and the eternal night claims all. Eirik's pulse raced, the pendant burning in his hand. Freya pulled him toward the cave mouth, where red eyes glowed in the dark. The wolves were here, and the Watcher was close, the Blade of Ymir in its hand. The seer's prophecy was clear. Blood would seal the tomb, but whose? Eirik's mother was alive, trapped in the Thornwood's heart, and the price of saving her was coming, fast. Chapter 11. The fires of Ragnarök cave trembled as the wolves' howls pierced the night, their red eyes blazing through the vine-covered entrance. Eirik clutched the pendant, its rune scorching his palm, the seer's words burning in his mind. Blood will seal the tomb. His mother, Astrid, was alive, trapped in the Thornwood's heart, bound by the god's shadows. The Blade of Ymir was loose, wielded by the Watcher, and the iron fangs were closing in, their spy in Skjoldvik, feeding them every move. Freya stood beside him, her spear steady, her green eyes locked on the cave mouth. The seer's staff glowed faintly, its runes pulsing like the pendant, but her milky eyes were calm, as if she'd seen this moment long ago. Move, Freya hissed, pulling Eirik toward a narrow crack at the cave's back. The wolves won't wait. Eirik glanced at the seer, her white hair glowing in the firelight. Come with us, he said, his voice tight. The seer shook her head, her staff tapping the ground. My place is here. Go to the tomb, Eirik, face the Watcher, seal the blade's power, or the fires of Ragnarök will burn us all. A wolf's claw tore through the vines, its growl shaking the air. Freya shoved Eirik through the crack, her spear jabbing back to keep the beast at bay. The tunnel was tight, the walls slick with damp earth, roots scraping their faces as they ran. The pendant's glow lit their way, its blue light casting eerie shadows. Behind them, the wolves' howls mixed with the seer's chants, her voice rising like a storm, then fading as the tunnel twisted deeper into the Thornwood. Eirik's heart pounded, his wounded arm aching with every step. The seer's prophecy clung to him, blood to seal the tomb, his mother alive, the Blade of Ymir, a world-breaking power. Freya, he panted, how do we fight the Watcher? It's not human. Freya's voice was grim, her spear tapping the tunnel floor. We don't fight it. Not yet. The pendant's the key. It can bind the blade, lock the tomb. But we need to get there before the iron fangs. The tunnel opened into the god's hollow, its rune-covered stones glowing brighter than ever, the air humming with power. The central slab like a dying star, its runes flaring in time with the pendant. Eirik's skin prickled, the memory of his visions vivid, gods falling, blood soaking the earth, the Watcher's blue blade cutting through the night. Freya stopped, her eyes scanning the hollow. They're close, she whispered. The iron fangs, I can feel it. Eirik gripped his axe, its chipped blade, a weak comfort. How do we use the pendant? Freya pointed to the tomb's slab, its runes glowing fiercely. Place it there, in the center. The runes will guide you, but it needs blood yours, or someone's. The gods demand it. Eirek's stomach twisted, the pendant heavy in his hand. His mother's face flashed in his mind, her fierce eyes, her voice. The truth lies where others fear to tread. He stepped toward the slab, the air growing hotter, the hum louder, like a heartbeat in his bones. But before he could move closer, a shout echoed through the hollow Eirik. Thorvald's voice boomed, raw and angry. Eirik spun, his axe raised. As his brother emerged from the trees, his war axe bloodied, his face smeared with soot. Behind him came Olaf, his black axe gleaming, and a handful of Skjoldvik warriors, their shields battered. But something was wrong. Their eyes were hard, their steps too sure, as if they'd known exactly where to find him. Thorvald. Eirik's voice wavered, Hrothgar's warning screaming in his head. The spy's close. Why are you here? Thorvald's jaw tightened, his eyes flicking to the pendant. You've gone too far, little brother. Running off, stirring the Thornwood, bringing those wolves. The Jarl knows everything. Olaf stepped forward, his voice like thunder. You've woken a curse, boy. That pendant handed over. We'll end this now. Freya's spear lowered, her body tense. They're lying, Eirik. They're after the blade's power. Just like the Iron Fangs. Eirik's heart sank, his eyes locked on Thorvald. His brother, his blood, could he be the traitor? Thorvald, tell me you're not with them, he said, his voice breaking. Thorvald's face twisted, pain and anger mixing. I'm protecting Skjoldvik. You don't understand what you've done. The Iron Fangs offered a truce, give them the pendant, and they'll leave us be. Eirik's blood ran cold. A truce. They have the Blade of Ymir. They'll burn us all. Olaf laughed, a harsh sound. The blade's ours now, boy. The Iron Fang spy Hrothgar told us where to find it. He's been playing you, feeding us your every move. Eirik's world tilted. Hrothgar, the Scald Hood, warned him, who'd carved charms by the fire, was the traitor. His chest ached, betrayal cutting deeper than any blade. Hrothgar, he whispered. Thorvald stepped closer, his axe lowering. He's been with the Iron Fangs for years, Eirik. He told them about the tomb, about your mother. Give us the pendant, and we can stop this. Freya's voice was sharp, her spear aimed at Thorvald. He's lying. They want the blade's power for themselves. Don't trust him. Eirik's hand shook, the pendant burning in his grip. The hollow's runes flared, the air crackling with power. Then he saw it, the Watcher, standing at the hollow's edge, the Blade of Ymir, glowing blue in its hand. Its hooded face was hidden, but its eyes burned, locking on Eirik. The wolves emerged behind it, their thorns dripping sap, their red eyes hungry. The gods' fire. The Watcher's voice echoed, not in the air, but in Eirik's mind. Choose, boy. Wield it, or burn. The hollow erupted in chaos. The wolves charged, their claws tearing the earth. Thorvald and Olaf's warriors raised their shields, but the beasts were too fast, too strong. Freya's spear pierced one, dark blood sprang, but another tackled her, thorns slashing her arm. Eirik swung his axe, catching a wolf's flank, but it barely slowed. The Watcher moved, its blade a streak of blue fire, cutting through a warrior like paper. Eirik ran to the tomb's slab, the pendant searing his hand. He slammed it into the center, where a carved rune matched its shape. The slab shook, runes flaring brighter, the air screaming with power. A vision hit him, his mother Astrid, standing in the tomb, her eyes glowing blue, her voice pleading, "Seal it, Eirik, save us." Blood. The seer had said it needed blood. Eirik drew his knife, his hand trembling, and sliced his palm, blood dripping, onto the pendant. The runes blazed, the slab cracking open, blue fire spilling out. The Watcher howled, its blade raised, charging for Eirik. Freya tackled him, pulling him back as the fire surged, swallowing the hollow in light. The wolves screamed, their bodies burning, thorns crumbling to ash. The Watcher staggered, its blade dimming, its form flickering like smoke. Thorvald and Olaf fought on, their warriors falling, but the fire was relentless. Spreading through the hollow, the thornwood catching flame, Eirik's blood burned in his veins, the pendant's power pulling at his soul. Eirik, Freya shouted, dragging him from the slab. "We have to go." He stumbled after her, the fire roaring, the hollow collapsing. Thorvald's voice called his name, but the flames drowned it out. The Watcher was gone, the blade lost in the blaze. The thornwood burned, its trees screaming like living things, the gods' fire unleashed. Eirik's mother was still out there, trapped, and the price of her freedom was now a fire that could end the world. Chapter 12. Ashes of the Divine. The thornwood burned, flames roaring through the ancient trees, their gnarled branches cracking like bones in the heat. Eirik stumbled through the smoke, his lungs choking on ash, the pendant's glow dimming in, his bloodied hand. Freya ran beside him, her spear lost, her red braid singed, her face smeared with soot and blood. The god's hollow was gone, swallowed by the blue fire that had erupted from the tomb's slab when Eirik's blood touched the pendant. The Watcher's scream still echoed in his ears, its form dissolving into the blaze, the blade of Ymir lost in the chaos. The wolves of the eternal night were ash, their thorns burned to nothing. But the cost was heavy. Skjoldvik's warriors, Thorvald, Olaf, all caught in the inferno. Eirik's heart pounded, his mother's face vivid in his mind from the vision. Astrid, glowing with the god's fire, pleading, "Seal it, Eirik, save us." He'd tried, but the tomb had opened, not closed, unleashing the god's wrath. The seer's prophecy had warned of blood, of a price, and now the thornwood was paying it, the flames spreading like Ragnarök itself. "Keep moving," Freya shouted, her voice hoarse over the fire's roar. She grabbed his arm, pulling him through the burning forest, dodging falling branches. The air was thick, the heat searing, but Eirik's legs kept going, driven by the need to survive, to find his mother, to end this. They burst from the thornwood's edge, collapsing onto the snow-covered ground near Skjoldvik. The village was chaos, women and children screaming, warriors running with buckets to fight the distant flames. The fire hadn't reached the longhouses yet, but the sky glowed red, the smoke a black shroud over the fjord. Eirik panted, his wounded arm throbbing, his hand still clutching the pendant. Its rune was dark now, cold, as if its power had burned out. Freya knelt beside him, her breath ragged. "The tomb. You opened it," she said, her green eyes wide with fear and anger. "The gods? Fire it's loose." Eirik's throat tightened, guilt clawing at his chest. "I didn't mean to. I thought the seer said blood would seal it." Freya's face softened, but her voice was sharp. "The seer warned you. The god's power doesn't obey it. Takes her blood." Woke at Eirik. "Now we have to stop it." He looked back at the burning forest, the flames dancing like the god's shadows from his visions. "My mother, she's in there." The vision showed her, trapped in the tomb. "I have to find her." Freya grabbed his shoulder, her grip fierce. "If she's alive, she's part of this. The god's fire holds her, like it held the Watcher. You go back in there, you'll burn too." Eirik's eyes stung, not just from smoke. "I can't leave her, not again." Before Freya could argue, a shout cut through the chaos. "Eirik!" Thorvald's voice, raw and desperate, came from the village edge. Eirik spun, his heart lurching. His brother was alive, staggering through the snow, his war axe dragging, his face bloodied and burned. Olaf was behind him, his black axe gone, his furs scorched. A handful of warriors followed, their shields broken, their eyes hollow. Thorvald, Eirik, ran to him, relief and fear crashing together. "You're alive." Thorvald's hand clamped onto Eirik's arm, his grip weak but steady. "Barely. The fire, it's not natural. It burned the wolves, the iron fangs, everything." "What did you do, little brother?" Eirik's stomach twisted, the pendant heavy in his hand. I tried to seal the tomb. My blood, it opened it instead. Olaf's voice boomed, his eyes blazing. Despite his wounds, you fool, you've brought Ragnarök. The god's wrath is on us now. Freya stepped forward, her voice cutting through. It's not his fault. The Iron Fangs opened the tomb first, took the Blade of Ymir. Hrothgar betrayed us, led them to it. Eirik's trying to fix it. Thorvald's face darkened at Hrothgar's name. The Skald, I should have known. He was too quiet, always watching. Where is he? Gone, Olaf growled. Fled when the fire started. The cowards with the Iron Fangs now are dead. Eirik's chest ached, Hrothgar's betrayal a fresh wound. The Skald had guided him, warned him, but it was all a lie. The pendant, Eirik said, holding it up. The seer said it can still lock the tomb, stop the fire, but it needs blood. Thorvald's eyes narrowed, his hand tightening on his axe. More blood. Haven't we spilled enough? Freya's voice was steady. It's the only way. The tomb's open. The god's fire is free. If we don't seal it, the Thornwood will burn everything. Skjoldvik, the fjord, all of it. Olaf spat into the snow, his face grim. Then we go back to the tomb, end this curse. Eirik nodded, his mother's voice echoing. Save us. He looked at the pendant. It's rune dark, but heavy with promise. I'll do it, whatever it takes. The war party was small. Now Thorvald, Olaf, Freya, and 3 warriors, their faces hard with resolve. They marched into the burning Thornwood. The flames partying like a living thing, guided by the pendant's faint glow. The forest was a ruin, trees charred, the air thick with ash. The god's hollow loomed ahead, its stones blackened but standing. The tomb's slab cracked open, blue fire pulsing within. Eirik stepped forward, the pendant raised. The air hummed, the ground shaking as he neared the slab. A figure emerged. From the flames his mother, Astrid, her eyes glowing blue, her body half shadow, half flesh. Eirik, she whispered, her voice in his mind. You came. Tears stung his eyes. Mother, you're alive. Her face softened, but her voice was urgent. Not alive, bound. The god's fire holds me. Seal the tomb, Eirik. Use the pendant. Your blood? Free me. Freya grabbed his arm, her voice sharp. It's a trap. The god's shadows lie. If you open it more, the fire will consume everything. Thorvald's axe was raised, his eyes on Astrid's form. She's not your mother anymore, Eirik. She's theirs. Eirik's hand shook, the pendant burning. The flames roared higher, the slab's runes flaring. He saw the Watcher's shadow in the fire, its blade gone, but its presence heavy. The seer's words echoed, the god's fire will test you. He sliced his palm again, blood dripping onto the pendant, and pressed it into the slab's rune. The fire surged, then dimmed, the slab grinding shut, the blue glow fading. Astrid's form flickered, her eyes softening. Thank you, she whispered, then dissolved into ash, scattering on the wind. The flames died, the Thornwood falling silent, the air cold and still. The pendant was cold now, its rune dark, its power spent. Eirik fell to his knees, tears mixing with ash. His mother was gone, truly gone, but he'd saved her, saved Skjoldvik. Thorvald's hand rested on his shoulder, heavy but warm. You did it, little brother. Freya's eyes were soft, her spear lowered. The god's fire is sealed, the Watcher's gone, but the Iron Fangs are still out there, and Hrothgar with them. Olaf's voice was grim. We'll hunt them, no traitor. Escape Skjoldvik. They trudged back to the village, the Thornwood, a blackened ruin behind them. Eirik's heart was heavy, his mother's loss, a wound that would never heal. But the pendant was cold, the tomb sealed, the god's fire bound. The price had been paid, his blood, his mother, the forest itself. Skjoldvik stood, battered but alive, and Eirik knew the saga wasn't over. The Iron Fangs would return, and he'd be ready, axe in hand, to face whatever came next.